Welcome to part 2 of podcast number 1. If you need a reminder of what it was about, we were doing the hot take predictions. If you want to see part 1, go check it out in the link in the description, or in the top right you should see a link to that as well. But please go check it out before you watch this one, because if you thought last part's predictions were mad, wait until you see these ones. This is gonna go quite extreme, but I still think they're plausible. I hope you enjoy, and let me know if you want more. Let's move on to some more big ones. Now this one's a bit of one for 2022, 2023, and 2024, which will also link to the next prediction. I think that Alonso will be surprisingly high up in the standings. I think Alonso will shock some people. I really think he will surprise a lot of people that he's still got it. I think we saw some of that last year. Did he nearly win a race? I'm pretty sure Alonso. He definitely had a podium. Podium. Let's just really quickly. He had one podium. I know that. Again, a lot of the later races, you didn't really tend to concentrate on that because it was all about Max and Lewis. The fateful battle. Yeah, no. He had a podium there. He had a near podium, but obviously, he was helping Ocon get the win there. And again, that's another reason why I think he'll do well, is he's finally treating his teammates with respect. But if he gets a bit closer, maybe he has a bit of falling out with Ocon. It was like Lewis and Nico Rosberg were they were tight, but they really, once they started competing at a big level, and I think was it 2016, I think, where it had the most strain on their friendship, that they just had that. I think Alonso could go back to his old ways, but we're very much seeing a much nicer Alonso. Maybe that's him taking things a bit more easy, and he doesn't really have that hugely competitive spirit, and he's doing a bit of Kimi, come back to F1 as a hobby. He's obviously said he thinks with the new regulations, Alpine, whatever, Alpine, I'd say, can have what it takes. I don't know. Again, does Alpine have a car that could get him to a championship? Could they have a championship car? I don't know. But I think if Alonso shows what he's got in Qatar, and even the Hungarian GP as well, where he did a hell of a job defending Lewis. Kind of reminiscences of the Checo defense, but it's hard to say which one was better, really. Obviously, maybe Checo's because it was more clutch, or more of a basketball term, but it was nearly quite just title deciding. But I think you could argue Alonso's was just as great. So you have those two performances. I think just those two performances alone, somewhat outperforming Ocon, and just having a really surprising, really solid year back. If you look at compared to, let's look at Michael Schumacher, for example. Again, I don't know how great that Mercedes was in the year he came back with Mercedes. But we look at a lot of that and we look at maybe similar results. But I would tend to be more impressed with Alonso's return. Just because he had a lot less retirements. Crazy. 1 retirement compared to Schumacher's 2. Okay, so it's close, but Schumacher just didn't get close to a podium in his first year. In 2012, he might have got a podium, but that took him a while. Probably around the same. Maybe Schumacher spent a year off than him, but also Alonso's been doing a lot of races. Schumacher just, came back, and that was the only thing he had, I think. If I can see his complete stats, yeah, he pretty much did nothing between 2016, 2006 and 2010. Again, I'm looking at the stats a bit more than I thought I would in this, but I'm a very curious person. I'm a very numbers person, so this is fun to me. But yeah, no, I'm looking at that and I am thinking he has what it takes. He has what it takes to at least maybe sneak into a 3rd or a 4th. Could he get that? If it's a runaway maybe with Verstappen, could he get that 2nd maybe? Be quite far behind in points, but maybe leapfrog Russell, Hamilton, the Ferraris, even Perez, Norris. I think out of them, he's definitely going to leapfrog some people, I think. I just don't know how high he would be. I think he's going to show he's back in business, especially if that Alpine really is competitive. A lot of people saying perhaps they could be the 4th best team. And honestly, if we were talking about old Alonso, if we were talking about the Alonso I was expecting to come back into F1, again, I wasn't a big fan of Alonso maybe doing well. I don't think he was going to do well. I think maybe had it ever been him, but I wasn't obviously a big Alonso fan just because of how he was in the past. I do, however, want to see him. I would love to see him do well. I don't think. Is that a World Driver Champion? Too early to say, I think. But yeah, Alonso high up in the standings, and I won't say surprisingly high up in the standings. I won't say where. I want to make a prediction for where he is 2022, 2023, 2024. I'll say that. But the one reason why I did say 2023 and 2024, so this was over the next 3 years, I think, ties into my next prediction, which is going to be that Alonso will remain with the team past 2023. I don't think that's the shocker, more so. I don't think that's the shocker more so. I do think the 2 ways I see maybe it going is more so. I think a lot of people thinking maybe Alonso said he wants to stay. He's gonna keep on driving until he's 50 at this rate. Grandpa Alonso in the F1 sport for quite a while. But I actually think there's 2 predictions. I'll start with, I think, what's the more likely? Maybe. A lot of people saying. So this is my second scenario, but I think it's slightly more likely. Maybe I think that would be, Alpine would be dumb not to do this. I think Piastri, instead of replacing Alonso, will replace Ocon. Crazy prediction, I know, but let me explain. I think Alonso is very reminiscent to me of Kobe Bryant with the Lakers. I think, and again, rip Kobe, rip Mamba. But I will say there was something about Kobe, as I think in those last few years, he was still around. Again, wasn't old as Alonso, but maybe you can maybe argue that they were in the same stage of their career. I think Alonso's doing better than in his last few years than Kobe's doing in his last few years for reason. I won't go into the whole thing because, this is the basketball podcast, but I am a big fan of basketball. I think Kobe with the Lakers in those last few years, after he won his last championship with them, probably starting, it was 2012. Again, I'm not going to give you the right numbers because I'm not too concentrated. I think he, for lack of better words, stunk it up there. I really think those last few years with the Lakers were really holding the Lakers back. They wanted to rebuild, or they were ready to rebuild. I just think Kobe being there and, Kobe being the centerpiece of the Lakers, where he wasn't performing that, and he was injured all the time, and he was just not doing much for the team. I think that really prevented them from going full rebuild. And I think that's kind of how Alonso will be with the team. I think, for me, especially since Alonso, kicked Cyril out the door. I think that was a big part because, that was a bit of his ruthlessness there. That was one of the things that scared me a little, that I think Cyril wasn't happy with Alonso being on the team, and they gave him the boot. They told him to go out the door. I think that was definitely a bit of Alonso's doing. Bit reminiscent of maybe LeBron being the GM of every team he goes to, even though he's just a player. I do think though that Alonso will have that power. He will have that power to go, I'm staying with the team. And Alpine, regardless of whether they think Alonso will be the best choice of them moving forward, or if he can actually do anything for them, or they think Ocon's a better driver, more likely to be a world driver, be a champion. Even if they think Ocon's more likely to be a championship with Alpine, I think just the grip Alonso has on Alpine right now will prevent them from doing that. So I think that could be the choice. There's a few reasons why I wouldn't think Piastri would replace Ocon, and Alonso would want Piastri next to him. I think there's a more likely scenario that wouldn't be great for Alpine, but I think Alonso may force it. I'll talk about it in a bit. I think there's, again, two mini scenarios in this one, that Alonso will see Piastri as a good wingman. If he has championship hopes, I think Alonso may think that Ocon's maybe a bit too close to the championship. Maybe as much as he likes Ocon, he's thinking, I want to be champion, so I will force Alpine to, boot him, or he might refuse, and he might go, I'm happy with Piastri. I think he's a strong enough driver. He might prove himself through this year, even just on the simulator and being the reserve. He might prove himself as a good wingman material. And Alonso's like, I want that. So that could be the thing that maybe makes Alpine a good team. You have a Piastri really supporting Alonso very well, but that depends. Does Piastri have a great first year, like he had a great first year in F2 and F3, and I think in previous seasons I think there was one other junior one that it won, was it F4? I think he also won F1, which again are fairly easy to win, but at the same time he did it. Even Mick Schumacher took 2 years to win F2. He had one rough year, then he went on to win the championship, the F2 championship the next year. And I think, honestly, I think Schumacher's going to have one of those years this year where he just steps up. He really gets comfortable in the car. But anyways, I think that's one of the many scenarios I would say. The other one is that Alpine doesn't perform, or Alonso doesn't perform, but Alonso does want to stay as a hobby. This would be a little bit less likely a mini scenario. I think if they're like, if Alpine want to win and Alonso's just sitting there like, yeah, I just want to drive, you know. I don't think maybe they'll keep him around. I think that would be a good reason to kick him out the door, even if Alonso wants to stay. But I think they could also find that's a better fit for Alonso, just be like a mentor for Piastri. I think if they want to bet the future on Piastri, I think their best hope, unless they think Alonso's got World Driver Championship aspirations, is that all of a sudden you have Piastri as your next hope, who probably is not going to be a champion or even in that conversation till maybe if he comes in 2023, you're looking maybe 2025, 2026 until, unless he has a great year, which is a bit hard, you know. Could he have maybe a Leclerc year in this, or 2023, then 2024 he's ready to start winning races and actually challenge? Maybe. But it's hard to say, and I think what Piastri really needs, and if you can't tell, I'm actually quite a big Piastri fan, not just because he's Australian. I just think he's a cool guy, and he's a good kid. I'm surprised I'm that old that I can call people kids, but you know, God, it makes me feel so bad that I can call these newcomers kids. Even Yuki Tsunoda, you'd think he would be older than me. Look at me sitting in my bedroom making a podcast, this being the only thing I'm doing. And yeah, sorry about the background noise. But besides that, I think Piastri, what he really needs and what he hasn't shown is he's too nice. I think Piastri is too nice. I think you could say maybe the same with Norris, but I think Norris has a bit more of that competitive spirit. I think he can really, you know, he can get dirty. I just think we've seen great racing from Piastri, and I will say I didn't watch a whole lot of F2, a whole lot of F3 the year before, but just the general sort of vibe I get from him. Although you might be able to compare him to Josh Giddey, who you would say the same. You would think Josh Giddey in the NBA. Again, another basketball reference. I'm sorry. I have a weird taste in sports. I like F1, then I like NBA. Josh Giddey, I thought, was someone who was a bit too nice, but he's gone into F1 and he's the NBA and he's doing great. He's doing a lot better than I thought. I thought someone like Jock Landale, who is also another Australian import into NBA, would do a bit better because he's got a toughness to him. But that's more of a physical toughness. Obviously, F1, it's more about mental. It's about social. I think it's about the emotional toughness of just fight or flight instinct, the eat or be eaten kind of. I think that's the one thing I could say about Alonso is he knew how to compete. He knows how to compete. And people like him, to an extent, Verstappen, and a lot of other great world champions, they're mean. They even Schumacher, you know, you can say that. They've got that competitive spirit, but they've also got that ruthlessness. I think Piastri needs at the next level. So I think not only Alonso could be great to mentor him, just because that, but I also think that Alonso could be, Alonso could be a great mentor in terms of two things. Just obviously being a teacher, similar to how I think Kimi Räikkönen could be a great teacher to Mick. I really think they really missed out on that opportunity to get at least 1 year of Mick with Kimi in the Alfa Romeo, but obviously there was some complications with that. Maybe Haas took dibs. Maybe Ferrari wanted to see another year of GM, but I don't think we know why the decision. I could be wrong again. I think he could do that, and then again the ruthlessness. Who better to learn a sense of ruthlessness in this veteran than Alonso? I think the attitude he has, it's not my favorite, but I'll admit it works. I don't think he's gonna turn Piastri. He would turn Piastri into an absolute bad boy. Piastri go for this nice Australian kid to this guy who brushes everybody off and is all annoyed at the media like Kimi was, and he's just got one focus, and that's driving and doing whatever it takes. But I think he could learn a lot from Alonso's attitude to kind of help him maybe still stay a friendly person, but also ruthlessness. Look at all the guys around you and think you're gonna beat them. Don't be too friendly with anybody. Just get down and race. I think that's something that Piastri really needs. But maybe he succeeds without. We'll see. But so, and again, I'll try and get over this because I forgot there was one other scenario, the one other main scenario for Alonso staying, which I don't know if Alpine would do, to be honest. There's arguments for and arguments against. I think Alonso and Ocon could stay past 2023. We could see that maybe 2023, 2024, maybe in 2025. I think either has a good chance of the driver champion. And if Alpine comes with a good car, both this year, then 2023, they've got a good car as well, or even a better car. And they're like, we could win a championship here. Either one of them could be the perfect wingman for each other, I feel. One of them has to obviously decide, okay, this is blah blah's fight. I'm doing my best to support. I think that's how F1 works in this day and age. You need to have a good second driver. I think it's always been important, but I think there's more of a focus on that. And I think for me, I think it would be Alonso that would be. I don't know if Ocon has. Well, does he have that championship mentality? That's why I think Ocon could maybe be replaced by Piastri. They might think, what are we doing with Ocon? He wins races, but we want to look forward to the future, and Piastri is the future. And Piastri, I think at this point has. I want to say, I don't want to be biased because I obviously am Australian as well. But there was also others like Ricciardo and Webber. I'm not the biggest fan of it. That are also Australian, especially Webber. I've never really liked Webber, even though he was. So I want to say, just getting rid of the bias there. I just don't think that Ocon is the future of Alpine. Do you justify as Ocon maybe Mercedes? Maybe the Mercedes will take on Ocon after Hamilton retires? Sure, yeah, of course. I think Mercedes might have a bit more hope in him. I think Mercedes, in a kind of a win now situation, might think Ocon is the perfect second driver for Russell, for good old George to win races. Not a big fan of him, but I'll admit he's alright. George Russell's alright. But I think I just don't see that. I think Alonso and Ocon, if they're in a win now position. So I guess it's two different scenarios. Are Alpine in a win now situation? Have they got a chance of winning it? then they're definitely going to overcome Alonso Ocon. If they're in a maybe not exactly win now, and Alonso says, I still want to stick on board, but Alpine think we still need a few more years. You take Piastri, you replace him with Ocon, you get Alonso to mentor him. Ocon could be a good mentor to Piastri as well, but you need Alonso. I think you need Alonso for that mentorship, and if he wants to stay, why not? But also as well, Alonso could be impressed and be thinking, that lineup, me and Piastri could win the championship. But another Piastri prediction. I'm really looking biased right now. We're going into 2023 now. Or what we were already on 2023 with Alonso. But we're going into a more exclusive to 2023. I don't think Hamilton will retire. I think he's just recently shown, and it depends on when this will come out, how recently that is, that he had that Chinese New Year's promotion where he was in the promotion video with George Russell wishing his Chinese fans a happy Lunar New Year or whatever it was. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I think if he disappoints in 2022, which I think he's on the trend of doing, he's not going to go from star driver to missing out on Q3s all the time. I think he'll still be in the conversation. He'll still be in the Drivers' Championship. I don't think I would go as far as to say Russell will just get in the car and absolutely out-qualify and out-race him, or at least win the race. Maybe he wins the qualifying. Maybe Lewis just has better race pace and, wins races, but maybe you could say Mr. Saturday himself is better on qualifying. Maybe. But both of them are a bit of a long shot, even for me. Personally, I kind of don't want to see Mercedes really go back to dominating. So I wouldn't want the championship to come down to whether Hamilton or Russell wins. I wouldn't mind maybe if it was between Hamilton, Verstappen, and one of the Ferraris, or Russell versus Verstappen or something. I'd love to see Verstappen in there, but I wouldn't maybe also mind like a Russell versus Norris. Like, that would be crazy. But I think for now I'm gonna say that's a bit of a long shot. So I will say, I do think with that added pressure that Hamilton has from Russell, with Russell probably being comfortable in the seat in the car by 2023, I think it'll just be too much for Hamilton, and I think he will retire in 2023 at the start of the year, not at the end, obviously. At the end of 2022, he'll announce his retirement. I think he'll just even if he wins a championship this year, I think even if he gets his 8th, maybe he's like, let's end it on a high note, like kind of like the Rosberg did. Let's end it on a high note. Let's not have that year where we're fighting a little bit with George Russell and his legacy's in question a bit. Is he really that good? Blah blah blah. Maybe he just. So I think in either two scenarios, he doesn't win, loses a few points to George Russell, and then Verstappen or someone like that takes the championship instead. I think he'll retire. If he does win the championship, I don't think he would, as much as he would love to be like, let's go for 9th. Let's make it a little bit harder for anybody to beat it. And I'm also going to make a prediction, little mini prediction, that I don't think there will be someone who will get as many championships as both Schumacher and Michael, obviously, and Hamilton will for quite a while. I don't expect anybody to be hugely competitive. Verstappen has that maybe that ability, but I think in the direction F1 are going, I think we'll see a bit more diversity in winners, in terms of who wins, as in, we'll see a different. I don't mean diversity as in we might. Yeah, we'll see a bit of bit more racial diversity. I think, but let's not go into that conversation or not. We'll not. We're not talking about that. I'm more talking about, maybe diversity wasn't a great word. A variety. I think we'll have a variety of winners. There's obviously Russell, Norris, Leclerc, Verstappen might get a few. We're also having Mick coming through. Maybe have Gasly and Sainz maybe as an underdog. I think at least in the 2023, 2030, 2020s, the rest of 2020s, there won't be that challenger for Hamilton and Schumacher's record. Although I would say at this point it is fair enough to say it's Schumacher's record, not just because I'm a Lewis hater, not just because I'm biased, but I do think it's kind of in the spirit of the sport where if two people qualify at the same time, the same exact time, down to the seconds, maybe even down to the millisecond. I don't know if they have the technology they probably do, but I don't think they usually would do. But if they qualify at the exact same time, it's the one that did it first that gets it. So I think Schumacher saying, when a lot of people say, it's Lewis's too, I think you really should say both, but I think if you say Schumacher, it's also understandable in the spirit of the sport. He did it first. It's his record. Unless Hamilton obviously wins his 8th. I really should say Sir Hamilton, Sir Lewis Hamilton, but no, I'm not going to do it. I can't call him Sir Lewis Hamilton. I can go on a whole thing about how I don't think he deserves it, but also I don't know. Again, I look so bad right now. Anyways, a little bit of a, a bit of a tangent, but I do think if Hamilton retires in 2023, just from all the pressure, who could replace him? I did talk about one scenario. This ties into my Alonso scenario as well. Alonso, Ocon staying at Alpine. You might see where I'm going here. Alonso, Ocon staying Alpine, leaving Mr. Oscar Piastri without a seat in 2023, and maybe for the near future, if Mercedes can't get Ocon, they might look towards De Vries, but I think a lot of people overrate De Vries. I really think he's not as great as he's, it's a big difference to, do well in Formula E than do well in F1. I don't think he might have it, but I don't think he's at that level. Anyways, that's not part of what I was saying. I think that the next best bet for Mercedes is Oscar Piastri. Crazy prediction. It's very unlikely to happen. I know that myself. I've still got one more that actually is even crazier. That people think I'm mental. I think if anybody knows me, they'll be booking me into the mental institute after my next one. But this one's already crazy enough. Well, people that know F1, that know me. I think Piastri could replace Hamilton in 2023 if Alonso and Ocon stay together at Alpine in 2023, which again is betting on a lot of things. I think it's possible though, because I think especially if it's harder for obviously us, and maybe to extent other teams to see how well Piastri is doing as a reserve driver. Do we see Piastri in FP1? Maybe he does really well, or does well enough to show some promise. Do they have a guy inside Alpine? Again, that would be a bit of a Spygate situation, I think. But could they hear rumors? Like, I don't think a rumor like that of like, oh yeah, Piastri's doing pretty well. I don't think, unless they get called out for it, I don't even think you could really justify that being like a big deal, you know. But again, they don't want. Again, I know a lot about NBA with tampering. You talk about a player that isn't on your team, or the coaches talk about a player that isn't on your team and is on his team, or a GM or another player, and goes, yeah, that would be a great fit on our team, or something. It's like, really like the guy. You could just be talking about them in a positive way, and they're like, nope. You're trying to persuade him to come to your team? Nope. Fine of 20,000, 25K. A lot of NBA references. I'm sorry. Stick with me. I think it's plausible that Mercedes could see some promise in Piastri. I think maybe he's a bit overrated at this point. I think they could see some promise. Do they want him with George Russell? When they've already got a Wonder Boy, do they want that? At the very least, you maybe have another Nico Rosberg and Hamilton, which positive. It's never too much of a bad thing to have two really good drivers on your team. And neither of them have kind of shown that they would be too mean about the other doing well. So I don't think they would clash. They could clash. And that's obviously the negative, that you have two drivers that are very frustrated with each other, and maybe have those you know, a prediction like those people saying that 2017, if Rosberg said Vettel would have won that year, you might have had Hamilton Rosberg clashing enough that Vettel in that Ferrari sneaks up and grabs the title from both of them. But I also think maybe Piastri, maybe Piastri does well straight off the bat, or maybe, you know, he takes a few years. You know, you've still got a good few years of Russell being great until you start to see Piastri being great, you know. Maybe Piastri really does need that 2-3 years that Russell needed to do well, although, you know, you could make an argument that maybe Russell could have gotten that Mercedes and just been excellent. But I don't think there's much more to say with that. It's crazy enough as it seems. Let's go on to the next one, and the second last one. This will be the craziest one. I predict that Stroll will be dropped from Aston Martin. That's not the craziest part. Actually, maybe the next part will be a bit more crazier. Sorry about the background noise again. Maybe it won't be as crazy, but just predicting Stroll is I need to discuss that in itself. I think Lawrence Stroll is a smart man. He's a bit cocky. I think he's someone that gets stuff done, but I think he might be more talk than action. But I think Lawrence Stroll might see another bad year from his son and decide it is time to really replace him. I think Lawrence Stroll knows what he's doing with this new Aston Martin team. He was ruthless in cutting Perez out. He knew that Sebastian Vettel's 4 world-time championship experience is enough to justify him being a better fit than Perez, because with Perez, you might have gotten better performances. They thought maybe that Vettel would do well. Like, we thought maybe just needed new changes. Sorry, don't talk to me about it. I think Lawrence Stroll will think, we've got a world champion. Now we need someone who can be our future. And we're looking at a few people on the grid. Again, you could see Latifi maybe being like, we'll take Gambit at Latifi. I think, though, if you're going to go for Latifi, you might want to go for you might as well have Stroll. I will say, I will quickly say again, try not to have Stroll bias here. Not a big fan of him. I think he definitely deserves an F1 seat. He's not the worst paid driver. He's not a Mazepin, for example. And I just realized we haven't talked about Haas, but I'll talk about that. This is a bit of a 2-1, a little bit of a spoiler to what I'm going to say. I don't think Stroll's great. I think he was... his cap's probably in an Aston Martin as it is. I think you can justify Stroll being in the Aston Martin right now. I don't think you justify Stroll being in Aston Martin. He doesn't deserve the spot on Aston Martin if Aston Martin's a solid competitive team, which I don't think it's going to be. Maybe in going past 2025, maybe you could see the second half of this decade Aston Martin decides to step up, but it also could be a failed experiment. We don't know. But I will say that I don't think he deserves that spot. I do think he deserved... He barely deserves the spot at Aston Martin right now. I think you could just definitely justify him having a Williams seat. The current Williams seat or something like that. You could say, yeah, that's what Stroll's at. I don't think Stroll, unless Stroll can impress and maybe bring on some of that performance he had, people will say he's young and, he's still got so much. I think that's not enough to justify him being the next big thing with Aston Martin. I don't think he's the future world champion that Aston Martin. And I think even Lawrence Stroll has got to admit its bias to his son. But at the same time, we could also see like Nikita Mazepin just constantly have that seat, stinking up that Haas seat because his dad's biased. I get it. You want your child to do well, but at a certain point, you gotta face the truth and see the kind of like Michael Jordan's sons. Again, another basketball reference. I know. They didn't do well. I think they got into college basketball, but they were nowhere near getting drafted. I don't think either of them have got a chance in the NBA, and they really haven't performed as great as their dad, which is something you think, wow. And that's you think genetics wise, he would be able to pass that. Lawrence Stroll doesn't have that experience. He's more of a businessman. I don't know if he had any racing experience, but, and sorry again about the background noise. Sorry, I was just waiting to see if there was anything that might disturb this. So much background noise. I wanted to do it in the day, so it's it's a bit more it's a bit lighter. I think the natural light is better with my current setup, and all anyways, let's finish this off real quick because we're already taking a while. It's probably like a 2 hours all up in this. I think you don't justify Stroll being the face of Aston Martin, the future of Aston Martin, I should say. But there is one person I think that really could. And maybe I should have prefaced this first. I think Mick Schumacher will go to Aston Martin. I think he could be the future face of the team. Aston Martin needs something. And having a Schumacher on your team, I think it's not something. Having a Schumacher, assuming Mick does well this year, which I think he will. It's another hot take, maybe. Maybe a lot of people expecting him maybe to not. I see potential. I see potential in me. So Mick going to Aston Martin in 2023. I think that's the best time. Maybe you could even argue 2024, and then again, my second part of this is that Vettel stays on board to be a mentor for Mick, because I think Vettel, as Seb, is would be the biggest reason why that would happen. You know, again, Aston Martin could go for Ricciardo or something, or they could go for someone who wins them races, and then maybe you let go of Vettel as well, and you bring in someone with a bit more experience from. I don't know if Aston Martin have a driver academy. Probably not. Yeah, no, they don't. But have someone they've been keeping their eye on, so that you stay competitive, and then you're ready once they get well. But I think what we could see is Mick not getting a driver Ferrari anytime soon. I think Ferrari have been ruthless in the past. I think they could at any time just drop signs. They could just be like, no, Mick's coming in now, get lost signs. I think Ferrari or Red Bull are the sort of people that would do that. And I think Mick won't have a place to go. So I think that's why it's good for Mick. I think it would be good for Aston Martin. And sorry, I'm looking at my notes right here. I think it would be good for Aston Martin to say, we need something to be the face, sort of like they got on Vettel, to say, look, we have a 4-time world championship. Sells merchandise probably a bit better, and also you have a bit more technical, and someone that really helps. Really helps. I'm sorry if I sound like I'm losing my voice. I've been talking for quite a while now. So yeah, probably not good for my voice. Probably not good for my voice at all. But I think Mick Schumacher could be the perfect person to represent Aston Martin. Could be the world champion that Aston Martin need if Aston Martin were to, be well. And I think another point that it could be good for Mick is the Ferrari door is still open in the future. Sainz and Leclerc, that pairing will only last so long. They can't go with them forever. You might be thinking, oh God, the second half of the decade maybe? How long do you justify keeping Sainz around? How long do you justify keeping Leclerc around? We assume Leclerc to be the future of Ferrari, but maybe it's not. Maybe neither of them are. Maybe you want to make the way for Mick and just, because Ferrari want Mick as much as they wanted Gio as a Italian driver. They wanted a Italian driver in an Italian team. It would have been great. To be honest, that would be something, even as, not Italian myself, that would be fun to see an Italian driver doing really well in an Italian team. And Ferrari would just love that. The Ferrari fans would love it. I think it'll be a spectacle, but, obviously Gio wasn't that good. But I do think they want to see a Schumacher in a Ferrari. So it still leaves the door open. I just don't, maybe Ferrari don't justify Mick going, I'm unhappy at Haas, give me a promotion. Does he force that? Is he a bit too nice? I think Schumacher's a bit too nice to directly go to Ferrari. Give me a drive, otherwise I'm leaving the academy, or otherwise I'm leaving your thing, or I'm going to go elsewhere because Aston Martin wants me. I think Mick, seeing the stability of the Ferrari lineup, could take an offer from Aston Martin. Aston Martin wants him. And one other person we haven't talked about yet is Vettel. I think he would really like that, because I think Vettel, as much as people think he's done after this year, I think Vettel could stay on for 2023 because Schumacher, his Mick's son was his hero. It would be just so poetic, not for him, but the fans and anybody who watches F1, for Vettel to be a mentor in the team to Mick. And I think when I was like, back in 2020, after Vettel got dropped, I was like, Vettel to Red Bull. Vettel knows how to drive that car. And I still would have loved to see Vettel in that Red Bull alongside Verstappen, but that still is the assumption that Vettel will want to, if he's at full power, will want to be the second driver. But again, we didn't expect maybe Perez to be this comfortable in the second driver, but he is a bit more of someone who probably would take that role. I think the only person that Vettel I could say maybe would go, I'm fine with this role, is if he gets to spend the last few years of his career mentoring his father's his legend, his icon's son. Like, that would just be, I think it would be poetic. It would make for a crazy story, and imagine in 10 years time when Mick's won a few world championships. Again, this all depends on Mick being this. And I was actually watching a bit of the Schumacher documentary on Netflix, and I kind of see what really developed him into that. Maybe Mick doesn't have that. Maybe Mick's a future world champion, but he's not that too much more. He's not like, it's hard to say. It would be hard for him to say he's on the same level or even better than Michael. Possible. Maybe it's even a little harder to say. I think all of us expected maybe to be, still a 4 or 5 time champion, maybe 3-time champion. But there is a possibility that he's only like, maybe has only 1 or 2 in him. But if he does show that he has potential, that winning F2 in the second year wasn't just because F2's a bit weaker, maybe it's a bit easier to win F2. I think it's a win-win for everyone. Aston Martin, Mick, and Vettel. Obviously Stroll, I think that would be it for Stroll, unless Big Daddy Stroll bought out Mercedes, and all of a sudden you have a fucking Stroll in Mercedes. I'd hate that. I would think he wouldn't deserve that. And Lawrence Stroll might be a bit hard decision for him, but I think it is possible, and that's going to be my prediction. You can laugh at me all you want. You can ring up all the local mental asylums, saying you have a new patient, needs to be picked up urgently. But yeah, it's definitely something that would be nice to see, and I still think it's possible that it could happen. Again, laugh at me when it doesn't. We'll see. I'm a bit of a clown, so we'll see. But we do have one more. And I'm going to go through this quickly because I have noticed this recording is quite long. Might have to cut it down in editing. Like I said, we have somehow managed to only go without one break. With only one break, apart from the introduction. I'll have to see background noise and all that. But we've got one more, which is not beyond 2023. Just, I'd say this is in the 2030s, but just a career, a whole career prediction. It's a crazy one that they'll take a while to prove right. So I would probably be like, what? So maybe I'm like 36 or something by the time we could say if this is true. Maybe I'll be proven wrong before that, because this could be, but it could be up until like I'm 36, in my late 30s, before we get a definitive answer to this, which is interesting. I'd love to even if I don't do another podcast episode, I'd love to reflect on this one, and I'd love to react to this one, like, what? God, I'm trying to think, maybe 10 years later, 10, 12 years later, we'll see. Again, it depends on how long their careers are. But we know, I'd say there's a big three right now of young drivers. If you want to say big four with Albon in there, but I don't think Albon's career's too, it might have been messed up. It might not be as great. He might need a bit more time. I think if they put a bit more faith in him and Red Bull weren't as win now, maybe he would be up there. So I think there's three big young drivers currently that are ready to win. Ready to win is the key. They're World Driver Championship level caliber. But I think out of Russell, Norris, Leclerc, the young big three, the next people behind Verstappen who are proving themselves, who have that championship caliber potential, I think one of them won't win a driver's championship. I think, and it's hard to say who won't. At this point, I'm like, maybe it could be Leclerc that doesn't. Who knows? Maybe Norris gets unlucky throughout his career. I think they'll all be maybe just as good as Massa, where they could get close, that the final race decides it or something. Russell as well, because when I made this, I was like, you know what? Let's make it a little bit ambiguous. Let's not say one of them doesn't win a championship. I could clarify it down to one, and if you want to hear me clarify, let me know. I think out of the three of them, someone will just fall flat. I think everyone would love a 2020s and part of the 2030s where everybody is getting a shot. We're getting six teams contending for the championship, or could win a race on every given day. I think maybe one of the teams they're in underperform. Maybe we see Leclerc and Ferrari. Ferrari doesn't do much. Leclerc tries to go to another team, and then again, that's another gamble that doesn't work off. Maybe it's the drivers. I just think we might see Verstappen win multiple. Who else could win multiple? Mick could win multiple. Maybe the position Russell ends in with Mercedes, and Mercedes probably being someone good. I think Mercedes have really ever since their inception, ever since they came to glory and showed that they can win, and even in the years when they weren't winning, they were second. They were pretty much second. A lot of people think it was crazy how they went from second to first. Then when you put it like that, it's crazy. It's stupid. But no, they think it's crazy how this Mercedes dominance came out of nowhere. But you know, they were in there, and all they needed was a regulation change. So I think Mercedes will still do well. I don't think I expected to see a huge Mercedes drop off. You won't see a Mercedes in the bottom 5 of the constructors. So maybe Russell will win multiple. Could you say that Leclerc could win multiple? Maybe. Could Norris then be the odd one out? Could the Norris be just competing with all these drivers and just never really make it? Get the best he does is second. That's the one where I'm really struggling. Who do you pick out of those 3? And I'd love to hear, like, who do you think is the least likely out of those 3? Again, if you've made it this far, I know I've been rambling on a bit. I don't know when this will be released, but hopefully not too long after I've recorded it, and hopefully not before the start of the season. Hopefully before the start of the season, I should say. A lot of my 2022 predictions, I think, will be kind of iffy if that happens. Although they could still make sense. But again, yeah, before even the test, I should say. Hopefully we can get out before then. But yeah, yeah. Who do you think's probably the least likely? That's my question to anybody in the comment section. Or if you Spotify, you know, you can find some way to join my Discord. I don't know. Again, assuming I post this episode on Spotify once I have one, we'll see. Yeah, that's the one where I can't give you a definitive answer. I think I've been able to, for most of them, I've been able to go, you know what, I'm sticking to my gun. This is who. This is who. This is who. This is how. This is what. This is when. And I have said the when with this one, which is just their whole careers. By the time they all retire, they'll be one without a championship. I'm glad I don't have to put Verstappen in that as a Max fan. I'd be, oh god, I would be my heart if he didn't win at least one. So I'm glad at least Verstappen has the one, and you know, we'll see how he does well. And I'm sure a lot of people want, you know, a lot of Russell, a lot of Norris fans, a lot of Leclerc fans. I imagine there'll be a few people who might be not so happy, and you know, they do want to see similar to Verstappen at least one. Which, but I think it's the sad truth that there'll be one that misses out. You know, you have Verstappen, you have a lot of the younger guys, all 3 of them, you know, battling each other, Albon possibly. I'm sorry to a lot of fans of those 3 drivers, but I think one's going to be the odd one out. Anyways, I think that's all for now. Let me know if you enjoyed this. YouTube, like and subscribe. Spotify, I believe it's follow. If this is on Spotify. If it's on Spotify, you'll probably see a few other episodes because I've decided that it's done well on YouTube. But yeah, let me know if you want more. Let me know if you want me to make maybe videos on one or more of these predictions, just to be a bit more clear. I noticed maybe I need a bit of a script. I've just been trying to work off my notes for now, but I haven't had a clear what I'm gonna say for this. I just have what I think is gonna happen, then I fill in the gaps, you know, fill in the gaps of why I think that is what is my evidence? And there's a few that I didn't really have evidence for. Or some where the evidence is a bit questionable. But yeah, I wanna maybe do something similar to this in the next episode. You'll see. Maybe not more so in a prediction, but maybe a wishes. Maybe something that's some hot takes that are so hot and so unlikely that I can't even say predictions. I would be banned off the internet. I'd be like, I want them to happen, but I'm not sure they're gonna happen. Let me know. Maybe we can get a few guests on. We'll see. Depends how well this does. But yeah, maybe regardless we'll do one website just to see how it goes. I'm talking too much. I just gotta finish this. Thanks all for watching. Let me know if you enjoyed it, and yeah, hopefully we'll be back for one more episode or more. I still need the green light from you guys to see if we can have a few more. The plan is hopefully maybe to do it throughout the season, where it's not one every. With my current schedule, it probably wouldn't be one after every race weekend. I think I could probably fit it in, but there's a lot of other things I'm doing. Busy with work. Maybe we could check in with everything. Maybe we could check in the season at a few key milestones after every few races. Maybe talk about that. Look at our predictions. Talk about more of my hot takes. I should really call this Trip4ndF1ll hot takes, because I do want to. I don't want to go for the safe predictions. I really don't want to go for something boring and this is definitely going to happen and I'm 90% sure. I want to be even uncertain about my predictions, and I'm a very someone who, if you don't know me, who just has these crazy thoughts and crazy unusual and not usually agreeable opinions. So yeah, that's that, and I'll see you all in the next episode, hopefully.